John from Ripewave Audio with the August 13th, 2024 edition of Ripewave Connections. Now, this new series we just started this week, I'm very excited about because I can get content out to you more quickly with news stories from the favorite brands and things that are changing in the hi-fi and home theater markets before we can go and do an in-depth review. And with that, we can cover your comments, that feedback, and I want to become closer to you through these responses, give a little more color than what I can just putting a text response back to you, but give a little more explanation of where I'm coming from. And if I don't quite understand your comment or question, we can cover that. And perhaps this audience can delve into it a little bit more. Some of the topics that we're coming up with for today is a little more discussion on that JBL ad series, how to do Atmos streaming with a device like a Roku or an Apple TV, some of the things you have to think about if you want to get those immersive speakers going. And of course, your comments, we have several of them to cover down through this. But just to talk about the JBL ad a little bit more, it's a little different approach here using this Gen Z group, but of course we want to bring a younger group into the home theater and hi-fi arena, and we're glad to see that JBL is targeting that audience, but let's do it in the right way. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is after I did the video yesterday, I noticed that Audioholics had done a similar video or more dedicated video 2 weeks ago on the same subject. They were very concerned that JBL was portraying the Gen Z women as idiots. And it isn't a good look. And I don't think it really was done in the best taste. I think they should have reviewed, looked at the outputs, said, yeah, this is really not the right way. We shouldn't be talking down to this audience. Gene, you hit the mark here if you're listening. On this video, I completely agree with you that go after this market, but let's speak to their intelligence. I mean, I like to think of the younger generation as more lively, more vibrant. Here they're just sitting back on the couch looking at their devices and talking about JBL with a lack of energy. And as Gene pointed out, to switch back and forth between being kind of half interested to actually knowing some facts about the product doesn't quite sound right, and they're using different voices when they switch into, now I'm going to talk about this product intelligently. So set that aside. We had a video a while back this year, why to buy Yamaha. We did get a comment in yesterday, and they're pointing out, look, I have an older Yamaha 2070, and I'm thinking about replacing it with an RX-A8A. Part of the reason is to upgrade the speaker set from 9 to 11 channels, but they're asking is, can I expect with that increase in channel count, better sound quality? So what I responded here is, this channel's been out for a few years, but we didn't have the opportunity to audition, listen to all these older products. So I haven't listened to a Yamaha 2070. What we did was we listened to the newest generation, and we'll continue to do that. So without auditioning this in-house, really knowing what the 2070 had to offer, and I could study this on paper too, it's a little hard for me to say, yes, definitely you're going to hear something better from a sound quality point of view. But one thing I can say is they did make improvements since the 2070 on their YPOW room calibration system. With all other things being equal, if they did the same type of power supplies and the same type of DACs and the same type of components, the same type of quality, you actually should see an improvement because they've improved the room calibration system. And that's as much guidance I can give without actually auditioning the 2070. Our video on the Cinema 30, part 1, this is where we do an overview of the products. We talked about the older remotes and how they had an LCD screen on it. This person comes in and says, hey, I can give you a little more information on the remote with the LCD. So he's saying it's coming down to indicate modes, which component you're controlling. And he said it didn't always work well. It would misjudge the current mode, and you had to revert your changes. And so you had to switch modes, make the adjustment, and change it back again. This happens so often when switching on and off the TV together with the receiver. So that was annoying to him. But he feels with HDMI now, it will follow the devices, toggling the power, or you're changing the active source. So I think what he's saying here is it's okay because the technology has evolved and you're getting what you're expecting, and you don't need that LCD display to tell you. So nice feedback. On the same series, part 4 for the Cinema 30, someone's just saying, I like the detailed comparison. Well, I'm glad that content was helpful to you. I appreciate it, even if you're going to have a simple message back that you like or you didn't like the content. That helps me. Now on to part 5 for the Cinema 30. I got a comment here. This individual is doing a side-by-side comparison with Cinema 30 and the Denon A1H, their flagship receiver, which costs more money than the Cinema 30. And he's coming back and saying that he prefers the Cinema 30 to the Denon. He finds that the Marantz is more refined, more control, cleaner, very spacious, etc. I really appreciate this feedback. This is not a test that we've done. We haven't brought in the A1H. We've had a threshold of $5,000. We haven't brought components in that cost more than $5,000. Of course, the Arcam AV41 we brought in was, but what we paid for it at the time was under $5,000. It was on sale. But other than that, we really stuck to it. That's why we haven't brought in the A1H. We might change that threshold over the next year because I'm really interested myself. But I'm really glad he's doing this comparison because we haven't. I feel that the A1A Denon flagship still has a place because if you're trying to do an all-in-one and you don't want to have external amplifications, this is the only product that's going to give you that many channels and that many onboard amplifiers. You're not going to find any other model in the world that has this combination of things. So if you need a lot of channels and you want to power them all in one box, this is what you got. If you don't need all that, I would agree with him. You may save some money and go to something like the Cinema 30. Some feedback on that. Let's keep that conversation going, the difference between those two. Then we had our video from yesterday, our connections video. Some feedback's already coming in. One individual wrote, hey, another thing you should pay attention to is ventilation on your Cinema 50. It will cause overheating if you don't have enough ventilation. So I went out to the Marantz website and I found that they are recommending Marantz 6 inches of ventilation on top and 2 inches on the sides, on either side of the receiver or amplifier, to greatly reduce the risk of overheating and tripping the protection circuits when playing at moderate to high volume outputs. Now, 6 inches is an awful lot. I normally have it on the shelf, and at best, this is 8 inches top to bottom, which, unless this thing is 2 inches high, we don't have 6 inches of headroom over this. But I find the rack is still quite open. This doesn't have closed off sides with glass doors or anything in front of it. There's nothing in the back, and even only has 3 legs, not 4. So it's pretty wide open. I don't see this overheating. We haven't tripped the protection circuits since we've owned it over the last couple of years. So I think we've been safe with that. The other thing that helps us is I've been running it with 100% external amplifiers. So the fact that this would only trip maybe under high volumes isn't going to be a factor because I'm offloading everything to external amps. But very good to point that out. Another thing I'll say, though, is I think 6 inches is an awful lot. To have that much space above the receiver is a lot to ask. We also had somebody weigh in on the issues we had with our unit. He has a Cinema 40, not a 50, so a little better. He has a problem with direct mode. The left and right main speakers are sounding differently, and he's past warranty, so he's feels like he's stuck with this unit. He would have returned it for Yamaha if he knew this problem was going to be there. But what he's doing is connecting a PC, using the aux input of the Cinema 40, and going into the direct mode, using a test video that has signals going out to the different channels to create the test tones coming in from an external source. And what he's hearing is that there's an extremely different sound in each channel, particularly, the left versus the right. What I liked about his testing is he has another unit, an integrated amp from Onkyo, and he ran the same signal, the same test, I'm assuming the same wires, and they were the same 500 hertz signal. So something's going on there with that. And he also suggests the Odyssey tones that are built into the Marantz. Say, look, just because this is made in Japan doesn't mean everything's going to work perfectly. And he seems to be right here. I commented and said, hey, look, I like your methodical test. I think it is key that he checked with a different source, right? So he's got to control. If this is not repeatable with a different receiver, then I know it's not the source, it's not the wires. So very well done. My question to him is, has he called Marantz and what have they said so far, right? So I think he probably does have an issue that needs to be addressed. Also, if you want to do testing, I do recommend the Spatial Audio Calibration Toolkit disc. I have one. I use this often as an external source. I find it very good. You put this in your Blu-ray player and you've got it. We'll save this one for last. This one is on Roku and using it with Netflix and Amazon Prime. And he doesn't feel like he's getting any height channels with this. He's got a Macintosh MX123. So really good processor. And he wants to be able to enjoy this. And the only way he can get the height channels is to put Blu-rays, physical media in. So he says, what's going on? I'm only hearing 7.1. Well, let's think about this a bit. Netflix does support 5.1 surround sound and Atmos. Now, at first looking at the page I originally went to, they're not claiming how many channels you'll get with the Atmos signal, but they do require, if content's going up and it has the Atmos badge on Netflix, it has to be mixed at a 7.1.4 at a minimum. So that suggests that you should be able to play back and match the source. Now, Amazon Prime supports Atmos and Dolby Vision, but you have to pay extra for that. We'll talk more. And then he comes back and says, look, I'm only getting 7.1. It's making those speakers useless. And I agree. We want you to be able to use those speakers. So I think this is something that we need to test a little further. So far, I've looked at things online, right? So if they're claiming the content is Atmos and Netflix requires it to be a 7.1.4, as we said, what's going on here, right? So some things to rule out. First, make sure that your streaming service is configured and licensed for Atmos playback, and it's not usually the default. That your streaming device supports Atmos. And 3, that you're plugged directly into the AVR or processor. Or make sure that your TV, if the signal's directly connected to the TV, that passback through ARC or eARC is appropriately sending those signals back to the receiver, or to the processor in this case. And then finally, it will come down to the content, right? Is there enough immersive height? Is it only like in 2 scenes that they decided to put it up on the ceiling and you're just missing it because it's only within 20 seconds of a 2-hour movie? It's possible, right? Looking at the Netflix site, they talk about Atmos on Netflix. They tell you that you have to be streaming in Ultra HD. Now, a different plan, they have to pay more for that plan. You have to have the capable device. So some of the same things we're saying, right? And they want you to set the streaming quality to high or auto. Looking at their prices and plans, it looks like you have to go to their premium plan, which gives you the ability to watch in Ultra HD. So that is necessary. We were able to find on the Verge website information about Amazon dropping support for Dolby Vision and Atmos unless you pay an extra $2.99 a month. And this translates into that same $2.99 that you pay to take the ads off the video. But it's weird that Amazon's site really just focuses on ad removal. They don't really seem to address the vision and the Atmos requirement. And here's an example of upgrading to ad-free. They talk about going into your account settings and selecting Go ad-free, but they're not saying adding Atmos and Dolby Vision on this to your subscription. So maybe I'm not finding, if you can find a link to where they actually tell you that $2.99 gives you Atmos and Dolby Vision, but we'll be trying this ourselves. I don't currently pay the $2.99, so for $3 a month, it's worth it to get that information to you. What they do provide, though, is a list of device support. So they go through each device, and you can look at this: Chromecast, NVIDIA Shield. This gentleman was interested in Roku. It does say that sound quality, it supports up to 5.1 surround sound or Dolby Atmos. So Dolby Atmos is supported, but you've got to pay the $2.99. Apple TV is what I use mostly, and that as well supports it. But if you look at some of these others like TiVo, it's saying just the surround sound, not the Atmos. Chromecast is only 5.1. NVIDIA Shield has the Atmos, so especially on an expensive device like that. So what do you think? You can certainly add comments onto this video as well as any others. Like to keep this conversation going. Thanks for being part of the community. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And you can always hit that bell notification so you're informed when the next video is posted. Donations always appreciated with the thanks button. And until we can meet again, keep evolving your audio experience.